Good afternoon, ladies and gents. It's the 26th of March 2025, and this is just going to be a quick follow-up from my previous video regarding the accident or sabotage at the West London electricity substation. As I feel, I didn't really I didn't conclude the speculative theory, um, nor the video fully. If you haven't seen that video, I would suggest that you just go and watch that one first. It will be the latest video posted only a few days ago. So as we look at the possible reasons for the Hayes substation fire in West London last week, my previous video spoke about the substation site in terms of its geographical location, the physical security at the site for, well, basically for an outsider or member of public looking in or at the substation site from the road. I speculated in that video that I believe the reason for the fire on the transformer could have been a result of sabotage. And I say could because what do I know? And I tried to explain away the possibility of physical sabotage in the form of, let's say, vandalism. Just before we go on, I'm just going to throw up some slides, guys, just to keep the just to keep something up on the screen. I then went on to suggest that this could have been caused by an act of internal sabotage in the form of a cyber attack. But I want to apologize as I didn't really provide any content or context, shall we say, to that piece of speculation. So in this video, which is just going to be a short session, I will provide you with some valuable content and clarity to the possibility. Quickly, as a personal disclaimer, although I have worked in the IT industry at levels of infrastructure across corporate networks involving deployments, management, security, monitoring, and observability, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I have an understanding of many sort of cybersecurity principles, but I'm not certified. So I just wanted to get that out there. Right, now we've got that out of the way, back onto the substation in West London, or shall we say substations in general. A substation, just quickly, is a critical part of the electricity power network here in the UK and all over the world. A substation can come in different sizes with a variety of components on any site. When we're talking about the Hayes substation that resulted in the power outage at Heathrow Airport, or not at, yeah, the power outage was at Heathrow Airport and also 65,000 other buildings across West London. We're talking about one of the transformers on site catching fire and engulfing in flames, causing significant damage. As a result, some hours later, the grid or circuit, I believe, was reconfigured to reroute power from other sort of alternative substations, should we say, to Heathrow and other sort of buildings in the area. We spoke briefly about sabotage, as in causing damage through vandalism, better known as a physical attack on the equipment. But my theory was more focused on the internal attack in the form of a cyber attack. I have no idea, ladies and gents, whether this is what happened or not. But what I want to explain to you is really the following. I was reading a paper from the Cambridge Centre for Risk Studies, mapping the consequences of an interconnected digital economy. And I think that was published back in 2016. And the paper is based on the following scenario. I'm just going to sort of read some of this out. So a nation state, that being Russia, China, or North Korea, or any other, employs a disgruntled employer or employee, should we say, working for the DNO, which is a distributed network operator, of which I believe there's seven in England. So those guys are responsible for managing regions within the country in terms of the distribution of electricity and power or energy. And although this scenario is on a larger scale, so that's seen last week in West London, there are some points that I just want to highlight, some sort of key points in this scenario that help support the possibility. So employing a disgruntled employees can be the same as already having personnel employed and embedded into the UK's critical infrastructure positions across the whole country. Cyber threat is a top risk for companies as businesses have increased I suppose the reliance on cyberspace. The World Economy Forum's 2015 annual report on global risks, it ranked the threat of cyber attacks in the top 10 for likelihood and critical information infrastructure breakdown among the top 7 risks for severity of impact. So the scenario target is that of a number of UK electrical substations in the southeast of the country, around the London area, believe it or not. This scenario is based on a number of hardware devices being planted in numerous substations in the area, which the perpetrators can connect to remotely. However, we have to also consider hackers being able to penetrate the substation control centers internally. So certainly if the substation is part of the UK's smart grid infrastructure, then that's highly possible. We'll just touch into the smart grid slightly, but like I say, this is going to be a quick session. This is just a follow up off the back of that first video. This report focuses on vulnerabilities within the UK distribution network, which represents a lower voltage synchronized system that delivers electricity to households, business places, and industrial plants. The attack focuses on the UK distribution network as opposed to the generation and transmission facilities of the electricity grid. The key element of a distribution network is the substation. So substations form the nodes of a network with underground cables forming sort of links most of the time. Those cables they try and embed them under the ground for resilience reasons. There is resilience in the network, and large sort of scale blackouts will only sort of happen it's when several connected substations are simultaneously disabled. Just quickly, I'm going to just quickly talk about access to substations, because on the first video, we're looking at physical access. I just want to have a look at a different access here. And I am referring to this paper, this scenario that's been sort of created. So the distribution companies are fully aware of the possibility of cyber intrusion into their systems, and they have sophisticated security processes, personnel, and system architecture dedicated to preventing it. But all systems have weaknesses with potential for a determined attacker to find ways through. A sophisticated attacker may be able to devise ways that could exploit vulnerabilities in the sort of defenses. This scenario is actually split up into 5 phases, but we're only going to talk about, or we're just going to concentrate on 2. The other 3 are irrelevant, really. Phase 1 is it's the research phase. So a national or a nation state, should we say, spends 6 months. This is the scenario, guys. It could take longer. It could be a lot less than that in other situations. But the nation state spends in this scenario 6 months creating a rogue hardware sort of platform, identifying a disgruntled employee, and then rogue devices are installed by this employee or employees or employer, multiple people in multiple locations. The nation state for phase 2 then spends 6 months communicating with the devices, developing attack plans and conducting reconnaissance on the substation. So what that's doing is they are scanning the substation networks. And then phase 3 then is the attack is launched, and that's as far as we're going to go, because the rest refers to major sort of blackouts affecting millions of people and businesses in the southeast of the UK, and that is not what we well, none of us experienced that last week. The scenario refers to planting hardware devices into substations, allowing the hackers to then remotely connect to those devices which would be attached, let's say, to the substation network. That would be the internal network. And then the hack can then begin. I don't believe we're going to know, we're not going to know how that fire really started, whether it was hackers or not. My guess is that the fire will be blamed on the transfer or the transformer hardware fault, due to the equipment being old or out of date or something along those lines. But it seems that the masses are more interested in whether or not you know, they can get flights into and out of Heathrow for their holidays. Similar to the COVID crisis, people were off and literally going off and getting their vaccinations just so that they could fly or get onto planes and go on their holidays. Anyway, let's let's move on quickly. It if this was a cyber attack, we're never going to know, like I've just said, because either way, someone will be made accountable for the outage, whether that be due to inadequate maintenance checks, out of date or poorly maintained hardware, or some other reason. People want to be sort of finger pointing. That's just the way it is. Someone has to be held accountable. Remember, guys, I'm going down the cyber attack route for one reason, and that is because I believe that NATO and the EU are already at war, and cyber attacks on critical infrastructure has already sort of been happening and continues to happen every day. Anyway, excuse me, back to the scenario. Once the hardware device or devices are plugged in, the hackers can remotely connect to these devices via 4G or 5G SIM cards. In this paper, the hackers have installed rogue hardware at a number of substations, each with different tasks or a different type of malware than the other. So the hardware is also designed so that the problem can't be sort of fixed by engineers connecting in remotely. So if you've got engineers in different countries that, connecting to substations remotely to carry out support and upgrades and maintenance and all that, they won't be able to do that. And when arriving on site, these engineers will not know what type of malware is in place, as it's going to be different to its neighbor. When I say its neighbor, it's going to be a different malware injected or infected at each different substation. So if we're talking about multiple substations, one will have one form of malware, the other will have another form of malware. So it won't be a case of going on site, resolving one substation's issue, and then just replicating that fix across, the other infected substations. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, the hackers have also created a set of what they call covering attacks in addition to the main attack that are to be used after the power has been switched off. So it's designed to sort of thwart the attempts by responders to restore the power. These covering attacks, they include internal DOS or denial of service attacks, the deletion of files, altering credentials and access control lists, and compromised safe or compromising safety systems. The hackers also spend this time conducting reconnaissance on the substation's network. So whilst they're tapped into the network, they are watching for signs that the hardware has been detected. They're recording and analyzing network traffic on the substation network, exfiltrating data and performing remote analysis. So they'll extract data and run whatever analysis tools and software. They've got mapping substation networks, so they'll be mapping it and creating a topology map of the network on site. They will be identifying relevant control messages. They'll also be harvesting credentials, developing the ability to replay traffic and protocol messages, enabling the control of switching systems in the substation. Exploiting other connected machines and lateral movement, constructing the ability to deny communications access to these substations. So they're then starting to take control. Obviously, if you've got remote support users or other users trying to access the network, they'll have the ability to stop that from happening. And then also, last but not least on here, they will be spending time planning physical damage attacks. So an attack of this nature is better known as what they call a cyber physical attack on the substation, which could involve an attacker sort of manipulating the substation's the digital systems to cause the transformer to overheat, potentially leading to damage or failure. So both results presented in this scenario. So I just want to say that again. It's a cyber physical attack on a substation, which could involve an attacker manipulating the substation's digital systems to cause the transformer to overheat, potentially leading to damage or failure. Before I explain what that actually means, let's just run through a couple of the key components at the substation that can be exploited. Guys, this is going to be boring for a lot of people, but just kind of just try and take this in just so you've kind of got a different perspective of a possibility at that site. I mean, I'm not trying to prove any points here. What do I know? I don't work for the government, intelligence, or the military. I because I've tracked what's gone on for the last 3 years, I see these kinds of activities as that they're signs, they're wake-up calls. But of course, we're not going to be told that, because what the governments can't have is people panicking. With panic, they can't control panic, and you can't have the masses panicking. So they need to maintain that control over the masses. Anyway, moving on. So let's have a look at the just a couple of the components. Okay, I'm just going to rattle through these quickly, and then we're kind of finishing off nearly. The Substation Control Center, or the SCC. This environment consists of equipment such as control panels. These are the primary interface for operators. They sort of contain meters, switches, and indicators for monitoring and controlling substation equipment. You have operator controls and consoles, which are ergonomically designed consoles, supporting the layout, improve the lighting, and reduce noise, making it easier for operators to work. You have what they call a HMI, which is a human machine interface. HMI systems allow operators to interact with and control the substation equipment, including circuit breakers, disconnectors, and tap changers. Meters and recorders. So these devices provide real-time data on voltage, the current, as in the energy current, power, and other parameters, enabling operators to monitor the performance of the substation. You've then got relays. These devices are used for protection, control, and monitoring the substation equipment. Again, communication equipment you're going to have in there, such as radio, telephones, and data networks for communication with other substations and control centers. The substation system monitoring is one of the components that you'll find at your substations. I just want to explain this because this is also an area that can be exploited by a hacker, which is contradictory based on what this platform does. It's a data acquisition and SCADA systems, SCADA systems. So SCADA systems collect and process data from the substation, allowing operators to monitor the performance of the substation and make informed decisions. Just quickly, just let me explain what that is, or what that does. So the SCADA, or the supervisory control and data acquisition system, is a computer-based system used for remote monitoring and control of industrial processes and equipment by gathering real-time data, allowing operators to analyze, control, and make decisions. So the SCADA systems are designed to collect and monitor real-time data. They gather the data for various sensors and devices in the field. This is going to be sensors that are on all of that equipment that I showed you on the first video, both externally and internally. So all of those devices there, so it's going to be, they're going to, those sensors are going to be tracking temperature, pressure, flow rates, and equipment statuses and things like that. The system is designed to supervise and control processes, so operators can use the collected data to monitor the performance of the equipment and processes and make adjustments or take actions remotely. Designed to provide a human machine interface, or HMI again. So SCADA systems often include HMIs, which allow operators to interact with the system and view data in a user-friendly format. And it's also designed to archive and analyze the data. So SCADA systems can store historical data, which can be used for trend analysis, performance monitoring, and troubleshooting. SCADA is used to monitor energy, water, and wastewater treatment. Also oil and gas platforms. So this is not just substations and power stations and stuff like that. This SCADA platform is used across manufacturing and the transportation sort of platforms. So we're talking energy, power generation, transmission and distribution. We're talking about monitoring and controlling water supply. So that's going to be treatment and the distribution systems for water and wastewater treatment, monitoring and controlling pipelines, refineries and storage facilities, oil and gas, monitoring and automating and monitoring production processes in manufacturing, and managing traffic signals, railways and other transportation systems. So if you right, basically what I'm trying to say is SCADA is it can be exploited. So if you can exploit that at an energy level, there's a possibility that you could do that across oil refineries and storage facilities for oil and gas, water facilities, manufacturing, traffic signals on railways and road. Anyway, you can see where I'm going with that. So key components, sensors. So this is the SCADA. So the key components, and I'm saying about these components because these are all vulnerabilities. Sensors and RTUs, which are they are remote terminal units. So they're devices that collect data from the field, and then they transmit it to the SCADA system. Communication networks. So that's networks that transmit data between the RTUs and the central SCADA server. The SCADA server itself is obviously a computer that receives, processes, and stores data from the field. And then you've got the HMI again, which is the human machine interface. It's just a user interface that allows operators to interact with SCADA system and the view data. Let me just get through these bits. Like I say, I don't. This can be a really boring subject, so I'm going to apologise. Unless you're an electrician or an energy off or whatever it is. The reason why I'm explaining this is because I'm explaining why a cyber attack at a substation, certainly a substation control center, is viable. Other equipment that you'll find in the substation control center, just quickly, is a power distribution panels. These panels are used to distribute power to different parts of the substation. Okay, so these are distribution panels, and the different parts of the substation can receive different levels of power. Switchgear. So this equipment includes circuit breakers, disconnect switches, and other devices used to control the flow of electricity to the substation. So let me just say that last bit again. And other devices used to control the flow of electricity in substations. Transformers. Again, this is what we're talking about. That's why this video and the one before has been created, because it was a transformer that was ablaze over there in Hayes, West London. But they're used to just step up or down voltage levels for efficient power distribution. That's what they do in a nutshell. We won't go into that too much, or we won't go into these areas too much, because that's not what this is about. Capacitor banks. These are used for power factor correction and voltage regulation. We've got lightning arresters. These just protect the substation equipment from lightning strikes. We've got an instrument transformers. So these are used to measure voltage and current in high voltage lines. Then we got batteries, which provide backup power for the control and protection systems and other components, such as what they call a HVAC system. It's a system that provides proper temperature and humidity control in control rooms, fire and gas systems and stuff like that. But we don't need to. But let's, although saying that, fire and gas system, yeah, this system is designed to detect and suppress fires and gas leaks in the control room. But that's not where the fire was. The fire was outside on the transformer, so that's not that. Right, okay, so I mentioned the smart grid technology, and we'll just quickly explain what that is. The smart grid is a large networked, it's a cyber physical control system that is part of the critical infrastructure. I've found a source or a document that presents a cyber physical attack against a substation where the attacker causes a transformer to overheat. The attack is modeled using hybrid attack graph, or a HAG, which provides a means to model both the physical and cyber components of the attack. It provides an insight into the potential attack vectors. Based on this information, key points in the system can be identified where security can be strengthened. I haven't looked at that document. I need to get access to it. I'm struggling to get access to it because I'm not part of an institute. When I say institute, you have to be part of a research institute to access the IEEE documents. I won't go into that, but basically, I will get hold of that paper because it is based on an attacker that causes a transformer to overheat, and I want to understand what or how they get to that place. Right, nearly there. A cyber physical attack targeting a substation could involve an attacker manipulating the substation's digital control systems to cause the transformer to overheat, potentially leading to damage or failure. So that's what we're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. But again, guys, I'm just speculating. What do I know? I don't think we're ever going to know. If what I'm saying is true, we're never ever going to get confirmation of this. So this is like a bedtime story, to be honest. Exploiting vulnerabilities. Yeah, this is just a quick breakdown of how such an attack might work. Okay, so I'm just going to explain how this would work at the substation. So exploiting vulnerabilities. Attackers could exploit vulnerabilities in the substation, supervisory control, and data acquisition. So that's SCADA. That's that system that's there to monitor, collect data, and allow you or the recipient to analyze and process that data. It allows you to monitor the infrastructure. So that's SCADA systems or other digital control systems to gain access and control. So SCADA is it's a vulnerability. Manipulating parameters. So this is what an attacker might look at doing. Manipulating parameters means once inside, they could manipulate parameters like temperature readings and cooling system settings, forcing the transformer to operate beyond its safe limits. Okay, so again, I think we're just going to get told that the equipment's old and something sparked and that's it. And none of the backup systems kicked in and none of the monitoring alerts or alarms went off and none of the sensors picked any of this up. However, that's probably what we're going to hear. But what this is saying here is, they can access these parameters, manipulate them, like the temperature readings or cooling system settings, forcing the transformer to operate beyond its safe limits. Overheating and damage. Um, by causing the transformer to operate at higher temperatures than intended, the attacker could lead it could lead to overheating, insulation breakdown, and ultimately damage or failure to the transformer. A couple of examples: recent events such as attacks on power sort of systems and substations have highlighted the vulnerabilities of these systems to cyber physical attacks. You've got defense strategies. So to mitigate these risks, substations need to implement robust cyber security measures, including strong authentication, access controls, and intrusion detection systems. Hybrid attack graphs, we don't need to know about that. Right, so as we finish off, so just in summary, I just felt my last video on this subject was kind of incomplete, certainly towards the end, and albeit my speculative or speculation or theory, whatever it was I mentioned in that video, I just felt it wasn't explained enough. In terms of, it's all right me saying, well, just because the world has gone tits up, and we're getting hit with other cyber attacks across other services, that's clearly what's happened here. Well, that's that's no good. That's no good to you, the viewer. You need to understand firstly what a cyber attack on a substation means. And before I can tell you what that means, you need to understand the exploits and the vulnerabilities. So that's all this video is about. Just in summary, I just felt that last video didn't sort of provide that information for you. Guys, I don't want to bore you with this anymore. I can already hear some of you sort of yawning and mentioning, they're mentioning the substation control panels and capacitor banks, smart grids, operator consoles and relays. No one's really interested in that unless you're an engineer. Long story short, though, cyber attacks are happening every week here in the UK. Are you just not hearing about them unless they hit the public domain? We've had the banking system hit probably 4 or 5 times, and that's different banks over the last 5 weeks in the UK. But if you think they're just normal glitches, then you better think again. Um, just imagine that the banking system gets taken out and you're used to hitting the PDQ machines with your phones or getting your wallet out and using your cards. What I mean is, do you carry cash? If you don't, you could be in a world of shit. Um, the point I'm trying to get across here is mainstream news are just going to tell you and I about how Heathrow commuters were sort of disrupted, sorry, and all the finger pointing about the ifs, buts, and maybes. That's all we're going to hear. We're not interested in that, or I'm not. In fact, the only people that should be interested in that kind of news are those that are affected by sort of flight disruptions to those families and businesses affected in the local areas. The people that were in the homes, the power outage that they had for 18 hours or whatever, they'll be interested. Um, we want to, I want to sort of know how and why the transformer was ablaze in the first place. And of course, this could have simply been, like I say, a fault on the transformer. But I'm not buying it, and I'm not buying it for two reasons. And as I finish off this video, all of the technology I've just mentioned above, the equipment in the substation control centers and across the power network in the form of smart grid technology and the SCADA monitoring capabilities, I would expect any such fault to have been picked up by the thousands of sensors which will be deployed on all equipment in all different positions. I know in server rooms, if you get a high-end server in a rack, it could have anywhere between 10 and 300 sensors just in that box, in that computer. Tracking all sorts of stuff, but mainly temperature. But you would expect this stuff to be triggering alerts and alarms way before the blaze, unless, of course, it was the SCADA monitoring system that was hacked in the first place. But on top of that, uh, when you've been sort of tracking the war, which is on our back doorstep in Europe for the last 3 years, the preparations of all countries across NATO and Europe are making, and the clear signals, currently unfolding in front of our eyes, on top of all of the cyber attacks hitting the UK at the moment, as well as the blaze itself, with resilience and redundancy, failover, and fault tolerance in play across that substation on the site, none of which kicked in at all, then that just tells me it seems more likely that the hackers have infiltrated the SCC. But again, speculation, guys, and either altered the electricity flow to said transformer, causing it to overload and overheat, or changed what was being displayed on the many sort of control panels in the SEC, just to encourage. I mean, you could do that just to encourage an employer to physically make a change a setting, and therefore causing the fault themselves. Or something, some other sort of attack on the equipment. But remember, listen, ladies and gents, this is all speculation. But I work on logic and some common sense if it can be found, based on what's sort of happening around us and across the world. So get yourselves military fit, infantry aware, just keep your ear to the ground, and just think about getting prepared. I just needed to get that out there, guys. Take care.